Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be doing the test that a lot of you have been asking about, and that is the Naturnest wedge-style rooftop tent versus the Openroad with X-Hinge wedge-style rooftop tent. I'm going to kind of walk you through these two tents side by side. I'm going to show you both. I've spent about 60 nights in the Naturnest, and about 7 months ago I switched to the Openroad, and I probably spent about 15 or 20 nights in that. So at this point I've got a pretty good feel for both these tents, and I can tell you kind of the pros and cons, from pricing to features to quality. So again, I'm going to literally walk you through both these tents. I'm going to kind of show you my thoughts on them. I think they're both good options, so I think there's probably something to be learned whether you're looking at this one or that one. But I'm going to try and give you as much info as possible in this video so that you can make a smart decision based on your budget and your needs. So if you want to learn more about how the Naturnest stacks up to the Openroad rooftop tent, stay tuned.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, I got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, so basically the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to kind of jump back and forth between the tents and kind of compare the features for you so that you can kind of see them, you know, first person view. What is the difference between the Naturnest build quality? What is the difference between the Openroad build quality? Kind of what are the differences price-wise? What are the differences setup and teardown-wise, right? So again, I'm going to walk you through all those sort of comparisons, all those sort of similarities and differences, and then hopefully that'll give you the info you need to make the decision on which one's right for you. All right, so let's start off by talking about price difference between these two. So the Naturnest is about $1,500 to $1,600 on Amazon right now. The Openroad was about $2,800. When I got it about 7 months ago, it was about $2,800, but for the last few months they've been running a special where it's $2,200 with free shipping, which puts it within about $600 to $700 of the Naturnest. And I would argue that the upgrades on the Openroad make it definitely worth the money. But so that's price. If you were just shopping on price and you just are kind of a solo camper and you just want the cheapest wedge style tent you can get, the Naturnest is a great option. If you want a little bit more room and more headroom and more foot room, and you're looking for something more comfortable, especially if you're going to have a couple people, then the Openroad makes a ton of sense, even for the money. So now next, let's talk about the crossbars on the top. The Naturnest is obviously a lot taller. The bars sit up higher. In some regards, that's got some benefits to it because you could put like U-bolts on there and things like that if you needed to mount something using U-bolts. But overall, having a higher footprint on a rooftop tent is not really ideal. And I don't really like the design of them and the fact that they kind of slide along the sides. They just don't feel as compact or as sturdy as the Openroad. The Openroad actually rides just right above the tent, so it's about as low as you can get. And it seems to be a much sturdier design. Instead of two separate bars that have, you know, the chance to sort of separate and possibly move on you, this has 4 bolts that hold the whole entire assembly, and it's basically, you've got 4 different mounting options for the bars, so you can move the bars, but the mount is one big solid mount. So if you're gonna be smacking into tree branches or, you know, doing some serious off-roading, then that one, to me, feels like it's gonna hold up a lot better. And as you can see from the scratches and stuff on the top, I mean, I've smacked this thing into trees, I've off-roaded with this thing, and it's held up great. So now let's talk about weight, because that is a big concern. The Naturnest does weigh in at about 172 pounds, I believe. So it is a pretty heavy tent, but it's not as heavy as the Openroad. The Openroad is about 210 pounds. Now they do have a version of this that's a little slimmed down and a little bit lighter weight that's about 165 pounds. That one's also generally a little bit less expensive. So Openroad does have 2 options. I will put links to both down below. I have the peak roof version, which is the bigger, heavier duty, heavier rooftop tent. And I really, really like it. Despite the weight, it's an extremely comfortable tent, and I really, really like all the features of it. But so if you're considering weight, if you're cost sensitive and you're weight sensitive, the Naturnest may be a better option. If you don't care as much about 30, 40 pounds of weight and you want the nicer, roomier tent that you're going to spend a lot of time in, then the Openroad definitely wins in that regard. All right, so now let's just talk about design in general. So the big differences are that the Openroad is a wedge style, right? But it just has hinges at the front and then 2 clasps at the rear. With the Openroad, because of this X-Hinge style, which lifts it up about 8 or 10 inches here and gives you a ton of extra foot room as well as an extra window here to let air flow through, the design of this gives you just a ton more room, but it does have 4 latches. So you've got 2 up front and then you've got 2 on the rear. Now that's not a huge deal, but it does slow down opening just a tiny bit in that you've got to undo these clasps and then go around to the back and undo that. It only takes a couple more seconds. It's not a huge deal. I am a big, I like to pack up and pack down really fast, and that has not slowed me down really, but a couple seconds. Overall, it's a little bit easier. And I'm going to show you where it has some time savings here in a second too, because there's another feature that the Openroad definitely wins by far and makes it way easier to open and close up. But we'll get to that here in a second. As far as the struts go, as you can see, the struts on the Openroad are significantly heavier duty. They're much bigger gas struts. The ones on the Naturnest are fine, but they're definitely a thinner, lower quality material. So you can kind of see that the opening of the Openroad, despite me having, dual 100-watt panels on the top and only one on the top of this, and it's lower down towards the hinge, the Openroad has no problem going up and staying super taut. All the fabric is super taut. To be fair, the Naturnest is super taut too, right? So it does its job, but as you can see back here, the fabric does sort of get a little bit of slack in it on the Naturnest, whereas on the Openroad, again, super taut. It's almost like the gas struts are more designed to carry a heavier weight because it's a heavier weight tent, and they just seem to match up better with the fabric. So moving around to the front of the tents, this is where you get the time savings on the Openroad versus the Naturnest. With this Naturnest style, now they do have one that just has the awning that comes off the back here and doesn't cover the sides, but I don't like that because then you can't have your side windows open if there's any inclement weather. If it's snowing, if there's rain, you can't have your side windows open because rain will get in if you just have the back awning. So that's why I went with this Naturnest, this version of the Naturnest, is because it had the side awnings. But as you can see, there are 4 poles here. So you do have to set up and put in 4 different poles, which is kind of a pain in the butt, if I'm being honest. Like 4 poles is a lot. Now it's not super bad, it's not a big problem, but it just takes you twice as long as the Openroad because the Openroad has basically the same awning design, but the way that they did it was they put the awning poles on the back and they made them go more out to the sides, and then you only have to set up 2. So there's only 2 poles on the back of the Openroad, and it basically has the same side cover as the Naturnest. The awning also goes lower, so you've actually got a little bit more coverage on the Openroad than you do on the Naturnest, which I really like. And I've used this thing in inclement weather, pouring rain, and I've had no problems with water intrusion or anything like that. Now, as far as the fabric goes, both of these tents do have like a dark fabric, so they do a really good job of keeping out the sun. I'd probably rank them about equal in that regard. The Naturnest I've used in bright morning light and it's been fine. The Openroad I've used, same thing, bright morning light, and it's been pitch black inside the tent, which I love. Makes it much more comfortable. As far as like screens and windows go, they're very similar, right? You've got those 2 side windows, you've got the back bigger window / door. Naturnest does have their big sort of door at the back coming from the top and zipping down, whereas Openroad did theirs the opposite direction, so theirs basically attaches at the bottom and then zips up. Not a huge difference there, but I will say, like, if you put your ladder on the back of the Naturnest, you're kind of climbing over the fabric, and I do kind of tend to clip it, and when you're sitting on it, like trying to climb out the back, it's kind of a pain. It feels like I'm gonna, tear the fabric or damage the fabric in some way, which is not ideal if you're coming out through that back. Now, most of the time I access it from the side, though, as you can see, so if you're gonna access it from the side, that shouldn't be a big problem. As far as interior goes, they're both very similar. So the Naturnest, as you can probably see up there, has a sort of a panel at the top that has multiple pockets in it. Very similar to the Openroad. The Openroad also has a very similar one, but they do have a clear panel in the middle there where you can sort of I put a light, but you could put an iPad or something and lay on your back and watch shows. I keep some extra cords and stuff up in those. And then off to the sides here too, both the Naturnest and the Openroad have these sort of hanging pockets here that you can see on both sides. They give you a spot to put things like keys, your wallet, glasses, power banks, that kind of thing. Now, both of these do have a built-in LED light. I will say on my Naturnest, the way that they do it is pretty cheap. And you can kind of see these plastic clips up here. So they basically run a cord for your light down through these plastic clips. And what has happened with mine is I actually snagged it with my foot one time and I separated the USB-A plug, so I've basically rendered it useless. Now I may be able to rewire it. It looks pretty straightforward. It's just a positive and a negative. So I may take a stab at rewiring it, but just be aware with the Naturnest, it's not really built in. It's like a separate cord, so it can get damaged. Another thing is when I bought my Naturnest a year and a half ago, I had to buy a ladder bag. I've heard that they've made changes to it now, and you do get a ladder bag, but when I bought it, you did not get one. With the Openroad, you do. So just to kind of show you the difference, I will say that the interior fabrics and stuff definitely seem higher quality on the Openroad, which would be expected for the additional money, but the pockets are nicer. The LED strip is up over there, and then it just has a sort of a plug at the back of it there. And then you just plug in there's a cord this right up here, I've got it in this pocket. You just plug that in. So, but it is detachable. So if the same thing that happened in the Naturnest had happened in this tent, where I cut my foot in it, it would have just pulled that plug out and it wouldn't have ripped and destroyed the LED strip. So again, just some smart design, some smart thinking from Openroad to make the tent last a little bit longer. But then you do also have these side pockets, both sides, same as the other one. Another thing that I've noticed about the Openroad is you see the zipper back here. This fabric seems to be easily replaceable. So if you ever did get a tear or a burn through your fabric, I'm sure it would cost you a few $100 to get a replacement bit of canvas for this. But you could just easily zip this whole thing out of here and then buy a replacement strip of canvas, which is really nice. So as I mentioned, one of the other things that really makes me feel good about the Openroad is this seal. So this seal is extremely well made. It's very, very tough. Then there's also a metal wall down here on the bottom. So there's actually where that seal comes down. Even if water goes past the seal, it literally can't get into the tent. Now on the Naturnest over here, it's kind of similar, but it's a little different. So this is where the seal goes, and then there is some metal under here, but the fabric does go down a little bit lower, so it does seem like it could wick water a little bit more easily. But again, I've never really had any water problems with the Naturnest, even after 60 nights and maybe 2 years of owning it. With the Openroad for 7 months, I've never had any water at all, and actually I haven't really worried about it at all, again, because of those great seals that are on it. But this X-Hinge down here is really the big game changer. As I mentioned, it extends up this back part and gives you about an extra 10 inches of space, which if you're a tall guy like me and you're laying in here, it's much nicer to have your feet against a flat bottom than in the wedge of the wedge style tent. So not only does it give you more foot room down there, but it also gives you more headroom at the top, because the whole top of the tent basically raises up 10 inches above where it would be if it was connected down at the bottom of the wedge. So that extra space is a game changer when it comes to, you know, changing clothes or anything like that. So again, overall, really loving the Openroad. And if I had to do it again, honestly, I would probably just go ahead and spend a little bit of extra money and get the Openroad over the Naturnest for my needs. And then one last thing that I did want to point out, that I never thought I'd be comparing ladders on rooftop tents, but there is kind of a big difference in these ladders, and I'm going to show you why. So one, this thing on the Naturnest does feel a little bit chintzy and sort of not as strong. Kind of makes a lot of squeaking. Now, to be fair, it's also had probably about 4 times as much use as the other ladder on the Openroad, so maybe that's just a factor of it being used more. So I just want to be fair with it. But the design differences are what really change it for me. So the way that you release the steps to lower down is you use 2 fingers at the same time and you push these clips in. Now, I do a lot of winter camping, and I've had these freeze before because of the nature of them. They're on the outside. Let's say there's freezing rain or something that gets down in these, and it will keep you from being able to open the ladder or close the ladder if it gets frozen. This is also sort of like the standard sort of design, but I feel like it's just a cheap old school design, whereas Openroad actually made some effort with theirs. And here, let me climb up this so you can hear it. Far less sort of creaking and weirdness to it. It just feels more sturdy to me. But a big thing to point out is their latches are actually under the ladder. So again, it's going to keep that weather off of it. So my concerns of the ladder freezing and stuff are definitely in much better shape with this design than they were with the old ladder design, because the buttons are underneath. So it's going to keep that water freezing rain above it and not getting into the latches up there to cause those problems that I've experienced before, which, again, I don't know if they did that on purpose or if this is just the design that they went with, but I'm really a big fan. Plus, not only that, when you've got your hands on here, sometimes you can get your finger in here and stuff, like you can kind of get pinched. I've definitely been pinched by ladders with the old design, whereas with this, I find that I put my hand below it and I push up with my thumb, and I'm not pinching my hands anymore like I used to with the old design. So again, not a huge thing, but something to be aware of, and definitely a difference between these two tents. All right, guys, so as you saw, that is the Naturnest versus Openroad rooftop tent. Again, both really good options, right? But definitely some quality issues with the Naturnest that you don't see as much on the Openroad. And also from an ease of setup and just like a niceness of features and a quality standpoint, the Openroad is definitely superior, but it's a little more expensive, right? So again, you could get either one. I'm gonna put links to both of them in the description down below, but it just kind of depends on your needs. If I had to do it again, I would go with the Openroad. As you can see, I've switched from the Naturnest to the Openroad, but due to the X-Hinge design, the nicer features, the heavier duty quality, the ease of setup, the fact that you've got half as many poles to mess with, just all the nice things that come with it, and the overall nicer quality of the Openroad, I definitely am leaning towards that and would do this tent again in a heartbeat if I had to choose between the two. But again, I hope that was helpful for you. Again, links in the description down below, so it'll make it super easy to find either one of these tents. But hopefully that was helpful for you. If it was, click that like button. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure to click the subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. I do a couple every week, so there's tons of content here for you, from gear videos to do-it-yourself mods to Nissan content to general overlanding and newbie content as well. So again, love to have you as a subscriber. Also below this video is a join button. That's just kind of a nice passive way to support the channel. It's about $7 a month, so no pressure, but gets you early access to the content and some other features as well. So if you want to support the channel in a passive way, that's a good way to do it. Another option is the Patreon group, and there's a link for that down there as well. That is a more active way to involve yourself with the channel. We have a 24/7 Discord where we kind of chat about our rigs and our gear. We do a once-a-month Zoom call, and we do 1 or 2 trips a year to meet up in person and just go camping. So tons and tons of fun there for sure. There's also a link to my website down below where I've got funny overlanding camping themed patches and stickers. So if you're into funny patches and stickers for your rig, for your headliner, for the back of your seat, that may be a good option for you. And then last but not least, there is a link to the Newbie Overlanders Facebook group. This group is totally free to join. There's over 18,500 members in it right now. And if you're kind of tired of the bullying in the big groups, or you're newer and you want to ask questions and learn, that's a good place to start, and we'd love to have you. So again, thanks so much for watching. Hope that was helpful, and we'll see you next time.